The dust kicked up around Lucy Patterson's worn boots as she walked away from the 7th ranch in 2 weeks. Her shoulders squared despite the ache of rejection settling deep in her chest. It was August 1882 in Prescott, Arizona Territory, and the summer sun blazed mercilessly overhead as she clutched the leather satchel containing her few belongings and a growing collection of polite refusals. She was 22 years old, capable with horses, decent with cattle, and desperate for work that would keep her fed through the coming winter. But every ranch foreman took one look at her gender and decided she wasn't worth the risk. The Patterson family had owned a small spread 30 miles south until her father died from pneumonia last spring, and the bank claimed everything faster than she could blink. Her mother had passed when Lucy was just 10, leaving her to grow up alongside her father, learning everything he knew about ranching. She could rope a steer, break a horse, mend fence, and work from dawn until dusk without complaint. None of that mattered when the foreman saw a woman standing before them instead of a man. "We just don't have positions suitable for a lady," the last one had said, his tone apologetic but firm. "Maybe try the hotel in town or the dress shop." Lucy had thanked him and left without explaining that she had already tried every establishment in Prescott that might hire a woman. The hotel had no openings, the dress shop wanted someone with more sewing experience, and the saloons wanted girls willing to do more than serve drinks. She had 63 cents to her name, no family, and skills that apparently only mattered when they came in a male body. The road stretched before her, dusty and uncertain. She had heard there were a few more ranches further north, though getting to them would mean a day's walk without food or water. Lucy adjusted her hat, a battered thing that had belonged to her father, and kept moving. Giving up meant starving, and she was too stubborn to let that happen. By late afternoon, she reached the edge of a sprawling property marked by a simple wooden sign that read Keller Ranch. The fencing looked well maintained, and she could see cattle dotting the hills in the distance. A large barn stood near a modest ranch house, both structures showing signs of care and prosperity. Lucy paused at the gate, gathering her courage. This would be the 8th attempt, and she tried not to think about what she would do if the answer was no again. She walked up the long drive, her throat dry and her stomach growling. A man emerged from the barn as she approached, wiping his hands on his denim pants. He was tall and lean, probably in his mid-20s, with dark brown hair that needed a trim and eyes the color of aged whiskey. His face was tanned from outdoor work, with smile lines around his eyes despite his youth. He watched her approach with curiosity rather than the immediate dismissal she had started to expect. "Help you?" he asked, his voice friendly enough. "I am looking for work," Lucy said, forcing confidence into her words despite her exhaustion. "I can handle horses, work cattle, mend fence, and do general ranch work. I am a hard worker and I learn fast." The man studied her for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. "You have experience." "Grew up on a ranch south of here," Lucy said. "Worked alongside my father until he passed. I know the work and I am not afraid of long days or hard labor." "What is your name?" "Lucy Patterson." "Miles Keller," he said, extending his hand. Lucy shook it, noting the calluses that matched her own. "This is my place. I inherited it from my uncle about a year ago." Lucy waited, bracing herself for the polite refusal. Instead, Miles tilted his head toward the barn. "You know anything about a horse with colic?" "Some," Lucy said carefully. "Depends on how bad it is. Come look." She followed him into the barn, surprised by the invitation. Inside, a beautiful chestnut mare stood in a stall, clearly uncomfortable. Her sides were tight, and she kept looking at her flanks. Lucy approached slowly, speaking in a low, soothing voice as she ran her hands over the horse's neck and down her side. The mare's skin felt slightly cool, and her gut sounds were quieter than they should be. "How long has she been like this?" Lucy asked. "Noticed about an hour ago," Miles said. "I have been walking her, but she is not improving much." "She needs to keep moving," Lucy said. "And we should try to get her to drink if possible. Have you given her anything?" "Not yet. I was about to mix up some mineral oil when I heard you coming up the drive." Lucy nodded. "That should help. Walk her slowly, keep her calm. If she tries to roll, do not let her. That can twist her intestines and then you will really have a problem." Miles regarded her with new interest. "You really do know horses?" "I told you I did." He almost smiled at that. "Fair enough. Help me with her, and we can talk about work after." They spent the next 3 hours working together to treat the mare. Lucy prepared the mineral oil mixture while Miles kept the horse moving. They took turns walking her, watching for signs of improvement. Lucy's exhaustion faded into the background as she focused on the task, falling into the familiar rhythm of animal care. Miles proved to be a competent horseman, patient and gentle with the distressed mare. As the sun began to set, the horse finally passed manure and started showing interest in water. Her discomfort visibly eased and her gut sounds returned to normal. Lucy ran her hands over the mare's neck one final time, satisfied with her recovery. "She should be fine now," Lucy said. "Keep an eye on her tonight, but the worst is past." Miles nodded, genuine relief crossing his face. "You were a big help, thank you." "Does that mean you might consider hiring me?" Lucy asked, too tired to be subtle. Miles leaned against the stall door, studying her again with those thoughtful amber eyes. "I will be honest with you, Miss Patterson. I have never hired a woman for ranch work before. My uncle never did either. Most folks around here would think I was crazy for even considering it." Lucy's heart sank. "I understand. I am not finished," Miles said. "Most folks would think I was crazy, but I am not most folks. You know your way around horses. You are not afraid of hard work, and you just spent 3 hours helping me save my best breeding mare without asking for anything in return. That tells me more about your character than whether you are a man or a woman." Lucy stared at him, afraid to hope. "Are you offering me a position?" "I am offering you a trial," Miles said carefully. 2 weeks. You work hard, prove you can handle the job, and we will talk about making it permanent. Pay is $30 a month plus room and board. The bunkhouse has a separate room that we used for storage. It is small, but it has a door that locks and a window. You would have your privacy. $30 a month was more than Lucy had dared to hope for, and room and board meant she would not starve. "What is the catch?" "No catch," Miles said. "Just honest work for honest pay. But I will tell you now, some of the other ranchers around here might give me grief about it. Some might give you grief too. You need to be prepared for that." "I have been getting grief from ranchers for 2 weeks now," Lucy said. "At least this way I will be getting paid while it happens." Miles did smile at that, a genuine expression that softened his features. "When can you start?" "Right now if you want." "Tomorrow morning is soon enough. You look like you could use a meal and a good night's sleep. When did you last eat?" Lucy tried to remember. "Yesterday morning, I think." Miles shook his head and started toward the house. "Come on. I will get you fed and show you the bunkhouse. We start work at dawn around here." The ranch house was tidy and functional, with a lived-in quality that spoke of a working ranch rather than a showplace. Miles heated up a pot of stew that had been simmering on the stove and cut thick slices of bread, while Lucy sat at the kitchen table trying not to fall asleep where she sat. The food was simple but delicious, and she had to force herself not to eat too quickly. "You said you grew up on a ranch," Miles said, sitting across from her with his own bowl. "Where did you learn about horses?" "My father. Lucy said between bites. He believed that good horseflesh was the backbone of any successful ranch. We bred and trained our own stock. He taught me everything he knew. What happened to your ranch? Bank took it after he died. We had borrowed against it for some improvements, and I could not keep up the payments on my own. They gave me 2 weeks to clear out. The bitterness in her voice surprised her. Miles was quiet for a moment. That is rough, I am sorry. Not your fault. Lucy soaked up the last of her stew with bread. Life happens. You learn to deal with it. After she finished eating, Miles showed her to the bunkhouse. The building was solid and clean, with several bunks in the main room and a smaller room at the back that had clearly been used for storage until recently. Someone, probably Miles, had cleared it out and set up a narrow bed with clean linkets, a small table, and a washstand. The window looked out over the eastern hills, and the door had a sturdy lock on the inside. It is not much, Miles said, but it is yours for as long as you work here. Lucy set her satchel on the bed, fighting the sudden urge to cry. After 2 weeks of uncertainty and rejection, having a room of her own felt like a luxury beyond measure. It is perfect. Thank you, Mr. Keller, Miles, he corrected. We are not formal around here. Get some rest. I will knock at dawn. He left her alone, and Lucy sank onto the bed, barely managing to remove her boots before exhaustion claimed her completely. For the first time since her father died, she fell asleep without worrying about where she would be tomorrow. Dawn came too soon, announced by Miles's knock on the door. Lucy splashed water on her face, braided her hair, and pulled on her boots before emerging into the cool morning air. Miles was already at the barn, and she joined him to find him measuring out grain for the horses. "Morning," he said, handing her a bucket. "You remember where we put the mare yesterday? She gets a half measure until we are sure her gut is settled." They worked together in comfortable silence, feeding the horses and checking them over for any injuries or illness. The mare looked bright and alert, showing no signs of yesterday's distress. Lucy mucked out stalls while Miles checked the fencing in the near pasture. When he returned, he had a list of tasks that needed attention. "The south fence line needs mending in 3 places," he said. "We have cattle that need to be moved to higher pasture, and I have been meaning to work with a young gelding who is ready to start training. Think you can handle fence mending on your own?" "Yes," Lucy said without hesitation. Miles pointed her toward the supplies and gave her directions to the damaged sections. Lucy loaded tools and materials onto a sturdy bay horse and rode out, grateful for the chance to prove herself. The work was exactly what she had told Miles she could do: physical, straightforward, and satisfying in its completion. She found the first break where cattle had pushed through weak wire, assessed the damage, and set to work. The sun climbed higher as she worked, sweat soaking through her shirt. She replaced broken posts, restrung wire, and secured everything properly. By midday, she had finished the first 2 sections and was working on the third when she heard hoofbeats approaching. A man she did not recognize rode up on a gray stallion, his expression curious and slightly suspicious. "You lost?" he asked, though his tone suggested he knew she was not. "Working," Lucy said, not pausing in her task. "Fixing this fence line." "You work for Miles Keller?" "I do." The man leaned forward in his saddle, studying her. "He hiring women now?" "He hired me," Lucy said evenly. "Was there something you needed, or are you just passing through?" "Jim Dawson," the man said. "My ranch borders this property to the west. Just surprised to see Miles hiring on a woman for ranch work. Seems unusual." "Good thing it is his ranch and not yours then," Lucy said, finally looking up at him. "If you will excuse me, I have work to finish." Dawson looked like he wanted to say more, but Lucy returned her attention to the fence. After a moment, he rode off without another word. Lucy finished the repair, tested its strength, and headed back to the ranch feeling satisfied with her morning's work. Miles was in the corral working with a young sorrel gelding when she returned. Lucy unsaddled the bay and turned him out before walking over to watch. The gelding was nervous but responsive, and Miles was patient and clear in his cues. After a few minutes, Miles noticed her and called her over. "How did the fencing go?" "All 3 sections are repaired and should hold," Lucy reported. "Had a visitor while I was working. Jim Dawson from the neighboring ranch. He seemed surprised you hired me." Miles grimaced slightly. "Jim is harmless, just nosy. Did he give you any trouble?" "Nothing I could not handle." "Good." Miles nodded toward the gelding. "What do you think of him?" Lucy climbed onto the corral fence to get a better look. The horse was well built with good bone structure and an intelligent eye. "He looks promising." "How old?" 3. "Green broke but needs finishing work." "Think you could work with him?" Lucy considered. Training horses was one of her favorite parts of ranch work, but it also required trust. Miles was offering her that trust after only 1 day. "I would like to try." "He is yours for the next few weeks then. Work with him when you have time between other tasks. No rush." "I would rather have him trained right than trained fast." They fell into a routine over the following days. Lucy rose at dawn, helped with morning chores, and then tackled whatever needed attention. She worked on fence repairs, moved cattle, cleaned tack, and spent time every afternoon with the young gelding she had started calling Red. Miles worked alongside her on most tasks, and she found him to be a fair and thoughtful boss who never asked her to do anything he would not do himself. The work was hard, exactly as hard as Lucy had expected, but it was honest and satisfying. She fell into bed exhausted each night and woke up ready to do it again. Miles treated her no differently than he would any ranch hand, which was exactly what she wanted. He offered guidance when she asked for it, but otherwise trusted her to know her job. On her 5th day at the Keller ranch, Lucy was working with Red in the corral when a wagon rolled up the drive. A woman in her 50s climbed down, her dress practical but well-made, her hair silver gray under a simple bonnet. She walked straight to Miles, who had emerged from the barn, and began talking to him in an animated fashion while gesturing toward Lucy. Lucy kept working with Red, but she could feel the woman's eyes on her. After a few minutes, Miles walked over to the corral with the woman following. "Lucy, this is Martha Green," Miles said. "She owns the property just north of here. Martha, Lucy Patterson, my new ranch hand." Martha looked Lucy up and down with sharp eyes. "Heard you hired a woman. Half the town is talking about it." "Let them talk," Miles said mildly. "You are opening yourself up for criticism, Miles," Martha said, though her tone was not unkind. "Some of the other ranchers are already muttering about it being improper." "Those ranchers can mind their own business," Miles said. "Lucy does good work, and what happens on my ranch is my concern." Martha turned to Lucy. "Can you actually do the work, girl, or is Miles just being charitable?" Lucy might have taken offense, but Martha's directness seemed born from genuine curiosity rather than malice. "I can do the work, madam. Grew up doing it." "Show me something," Martha challenged. "That gelding there, get him to move off pressure." Lucy glanced at Miles, who nodded slightly. She turned her attention back to Red, applying gentle pressure with her body language and positioning. The young horse responded, moving his hindquarters away from the pressure and stepping precisely where Lucy wanted him. She walked him through a few more movements, demonstrating his growing understanding of cues. Martha watched with the eye of someone who knew horses. When Lucy finished, the older woman nodded approvingly. "Not bad. You have a good feel for it." "Thank you," Lucy said, uncertain where this was going. Martha turned to Miles. I still think you are going to catch grief for this, but I cannot fault your judgment. If she can do the work, she can do the work." She looked back at Lucy. "If Miles gives you any trouble, you come find me." "I will set him straight," Miles laughed. "I am terrified." "You should be," Martha said, but she was smiling. She climbed back into her wagon and drove off, leaving Lucy confused about what had just happened. "Martha is good people," Miles explained. "Her husband died 6 years ago, and she has been running her ranch on her own since then. If she approves of you working here, some of the other ranchers might ease up on their opinions." "Does it matter what they think?" Lucy asked. "Not to me," Miles said. "But it might make your life easier if they are not all hostile. Small ranching community like this, people talk." Lucy returned her attention to Red, processing this. She had been so focused on finding work and proving herself capable that she had not thought much about the broader implications of Miles hiring her. In the ranching world of 1882 Arizona Territory, women did not do this kind of work. She was an anomaly, and Miles was taking a social risk by employing her. "Why did you hire me?" Lucy asked suddenly. "Really?" Miles leaned against the corral fence, considering his answer. "Because you were honest, capable, and needed the work." "Because turning away someone qualified just because of their gender seemed foolish. Because my uncle always told me to judge people by their actions, not by what other people thought they should be capable of." "You could have hired a man and avoided all the talk." "Could have," Miles agreed. "Did not want to. You were the right person for the job." Something warm unfurled in Lucy's chest at his words. She had spent so long being told she was wrong for wanting to do ranch work that hearing someone affirm her capabilities felt like rain after a drought. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You are earning your pay," Miles said. "No thanks needed." The 2 weeks Miles had mentioned as a trial period passed quickly. Lucy threw herself into the work, determined to prove that his decision to hire her was the right one. She mended fences, moved cattle, cleaned stalls, and spent hours working with Red. The gelding was progressing beautifully, responding to her patient training with growing confidence. On the morning of her 15th day, Miles found her grooming the horses in the barn. "So," he said without preamble, "trial period is over. Still want the job permanently?" Lucy paused, curry comb in hand. "Are you offering?" "I am." "You are a good worker, Lucy. Better than some hands I have had in the past. Pay stays the same, $30 a month plus room and board. If things go well, I can probably increase that come spring." "Yes," Lucy said immediately. "I want the job." Miles extended his hand and they shook on it. "Welcome to the Keller Ranch permanently then." As autumn arrived, the work shifted with the seasons. They brought the cattle down from the high pastures and prepared for winter. Lucy learned the rhythms of Miles's ranch, the way he managed his herd and maintained his property. She also learned about Miles himself through observation and occasional conversation. He was 25, 3 years older than Lucy. He had grown up on a small farm in Kansas and had come west 5 years ago looking for opportunity. His uncle, the previous owner of the ranch, had been childless and had taken Miles under his wing. When the uncle died unexpectedly of a heart condition, the ranch went to Miles. He had been running it alone for just over a year, hiring temporary help during busy seasons but otherwise managing on his own. "It is a lot of work for one person," Lucy observed one evening as they sat on the porch after a long day. Fall had brought cooler temperatures, and the sunset painted the hills in shades of gold and orange. "It was," Miles agreed. "Less so now with your help." They had fallen into an easy companionship, built on shared work and mutual respect. Lucy found Miles to be intelligent and thoughtful, with a dry sense of humor that emerged when he was relaxed. He treated her as an equal, asking her opinion on ranch matters and listening when she spoke. It was different from working with her father, who had loved her but had always been in charge. With Miles, she felt like a genuine partner in the work. "You plan to expand the operation?" Lucy asked. "You have good land here, could support more cattle." "Eventually," Miles said. "Need to build up capital first. Ranching is expensive and I am still paying off some debts my uncle left behind." He glanced at her. "Why do you ask?" "Just thinking about the future," Lucy said. "Trying to plan ahead." "That is good. I like that you think about these things." He was quiet for a moment. "You planning to stay long-term then, if you will have me," Lucy said. "I like the work and I like it here." Something shifted in Miles's expression, a warmth that went beyond simple employer satisfaction. "Good," he said softly. "I am glad." The moment stretched between them, charged with something Lucy could not quite name. Then Miles stood, breaking the spell. "I should check on the horses one more time before turning in. See you in the morning." "Good night, Miles." Lucy sat on the porch a while longer after he left, watching the stars emerge and thinking about the tone in his voice when he said he was glad she was staying. She had been so focused on survival and proving herself that she had not allowed herself to notice Miles as anything other than her employer. But sitting there in the quiet evening, she let herself acknowledge what she had been unconsciously observing for weeks. Miles Keller was a good man. He was fair and kind, hardworking and honest. He had taken a chance on her when no one else would and had treated her with respect from the start. He had a nice smile and thoughtful eyes, and when he focused on a task, he did so with a competence that Lucy found deeply attractive. Somewhere between mending fences and training horses, between dawn chores and evening conversations, she had started to care about him as more than just her boss. The realization was both thrilling and terrifying. Lucy had never had much time for romance. Growing up on a remote ranch with just her father for company had not provided many opportunities, and after his death, she had been too focused on survival to think about such things. Now, employed and stable for the first time in months, her heart was apparently deciding to make up for lost time. She did not know if Miles felt anything similar. He was friendly and kind to her, but he was friendly and kind to everyone, including the horses. He treated her as a valued employee and maybe as a friend, but that did not mean he saw her as anything more. Lucy decided to keep her growing feelings to herself. She had finally found a good position, and she was not going to risk it by making things awkward. Winter arrived in earnest, bringing cold nights and occasional snow. The work shifted indoors more often, with Lucy spending time in the barn repairing tack, organizing supplies, and continuing Red's training. The gelding was now fully saddle-broke and responding well to advanced cues. Miles praised her work with the horse, and they discussed possibly breeding the ranch's two best mares in the spring to expand their horse stock. "You have a real gift with them," Miles said, watching Lucy work Red through a complex series of movements. "Better than I am, honestly." "Just patience and consistency," Lucy said. "Any good horseman could do the same. You are being modest. I have seen plenty of horsemen who do not have half your intuition." He climbed onto the fence to get a better view. "I have been thinking. If we breed the mares like we discussed, I would want you to handle training the foals when they are ready. Would you be interested?" "Very interested," Lucy said, unable to hide her enthusiasm. "I love working with young horses. Consider it part of your job then. We can discuss adjusting your pay when the time comes." They spent Christmas quietly, just the two of them at the ranch. Miles roasted a chicken and Lucy made biscuits and gravy. It was simple but pleasant, and Lucy realized she was happier than she had been in a long time. After dinner, they sat by the fire in the ranch house, and Miles surprised her with a gift. "It is not much," he said, handing her a wrapped package, "but I thought you could use it." Inside was a pair of sturdy leather work gloves, well made and clearly expensive. Lucy ran her fingers over the smooth leather, touched by the practical thoughtfulness of the gift. "These are wonderful. Thank you, Miles." "Your old ones were getting pretty worn," he said, looking pleased. "Cannot have my best ranch hand getting blisters." Lucy had not gotten him anything, not knowing if gift-giving was expected. "I am sorry, I did not think to get you anything." "You have given me plenty," Miles said. "Good work, good company, and you saved my mare. I would say we are even." But Lucy promised herself she would make it up to him somehow. The gloves must have cost him at least a week of her wages, which was a significant expense for a rancher still building up his operation. That he had spent that money on her meant something, even if she was not sure exactly what. January brought bitter cold and a series of snowstorms that kept them close to the ranch. Lucy and Miles worked together to keep the animals fed and safe, breaking ice from water troughs and ensuring the cattle had access to hay. The work was exhausting but necessary, and Lucy was grateful for the solid walls of the bunkhouse and the warm meals Miles always invited her to share. One particularly harsh evening, Miles insisted Lucy stay in the house rather than walk back to the cold bunkhouse. "No sense in you freezing when there is a perfectly good spare room here," he said. "Storm is supposed to get worse overnight." Lucy accepted, too cold to argue. The spare room was small but comfortable, and the house retained heat far better than the bunkhouse. She fell asleep listening to the wind howl outside, and the crackling of the fire Miles had built up before retiring to his own room. She woke in the middle of the night to the sound of something crashing. Lucy grabbed her father's old coat and hurried downstairs to find Miles already pulling on his boots, his face grim. "Something is wrong at the barn," he said. "I heard the horses." They rushed outside into the blizzard, wind, and snow stinging their faces. The barn door had blown open despite being latched, and inside they found chaos. The horses were agitated, and one of the mares had cut her leg on a piece of broken wood from a shattered stall board. The wind had apparently blown something into the barn with enough force to cause damage. Lucy immediately went to calm the horses while Miles assessed the damage and closed the door securely. Together they worked to settle the animals and treat the mare's injury. The cut was not deep, but needed cleaning and bandaging to prevent infection. By the time they had everything under control, both of them were shivering despite their coats. Back in the house, Miles built up the fire while Lucy put water on to heat. They stood close to the flames, warming their numb fingers and toes. Miles's teeth were chattering, and Lucy realized he had run out into the storm without his heavy coat. "You need to warm up properly," Lucy said. "You are going to catch your death." "So are you," Miles pointed out. "Your lips are blue." Lucy heated water and made them both strong tea with honey. They sat close to the fire, wrapped in blankets, waiting for the shivering to stop. Gradually, warmth returned to Lucy's body, and she felt Miles's trembling ease as well. "That mare better appreciate what we just did," Miles said, his voice rough from cold. Lucy laughed. "She will pay you back when she gives you a strong foal this spring." "True enough." He looked at her, firelight playing across his features. "You did not hesitate, just ran out there into the storm to help, same as you did." "We make a good team," Miles said softly. "Yes," Lucy agreed. "We do." There was that charged moment again, the air between them full of unspoken things. Miles's eyes were warm and intent, and Lucy felt her heart beating faster in a way that had nothing to do with the cold or the emergency they had just handled. He lifted his hand as if to touch her face, then seemed to catch himself and lowered it again. "You should get some rest," he said, breaking eye contact. "Morning will come early." Lucy nodded, disappointed but unsure if she should be. She went back to the spare room and lay awake for a long time, thinking about the way Miles had looked at her and wondering what he had been about to do. The next morning brought clear skies and hard work digging out from the storm. They did not speak about the moment by the fire, falling back into their usual working relationship. But something had shifted, at least for Lucy. She found herself watching Miles more often, noticing the way he moved, the sound of his laugh, the careful attention he paid to everything he did. Her feelings, which she had been trying to ignore, had become impossible to deny. She was in love with Miles Keller. The realization hit her one morning in late February as she watched him work with a nervous yearling, his voice patient and his movements calm. She loved his steadiness, his integrity, his quiet strength. She loved the way he treated the animals with kindness and the way he had given her a chance when no one else would. She loved his rare smiles and his thoughtful silences, and the way he always made sure she had eaten before he sat down to his own meals. But loving him and telling him were two different things. Lucy had no idea if Miles felt anything similar, and their working relationship was too important to risk on uncertain feelings. So she kept her love locked inside and tried to be content with what she had. Honest work, a safe place to live, and Miles's friendship and respect. Spring arrived with wildflowers and warmer temperatures. The two mares were confirmed pregnant, and Lucy began planning their training program for the coming foals. Ranch work increased as they prepared for the busy season ahead. Miles hired on 2 temporary hands for the spring roundup, both men in their 40s who regarded Lucy with initial skepticism but gradually came to respect her skills. "She is better with horses than either of us," Lucy overheard one of them say to Miles. "And she can work a full day without complaining. You did well hiring her." Miles's response made Lucy's heart swell. "I know I did. Best decision I have made since taking over this ranch." The roundup was hard, dusty work that left everyone exhausted. But it was also satisfying, and Lucy felt a deep sense of accomplishment as they drove the cattle to market in Prescott. The sale went well, and Miles returned with enough money to pay off the last of his uncle's debts and invest in improvements for the ranch. "We did it," he told Lucy that evening, his face lit with relief and joy. "The ranch is finally clear of debt and turning a real profit. None of that would have been possible without your help." "You would have managed," Lucy said, though his praise warmed her. "Maybe. But it would have been a lot harder and a lot less pleasant." Miles hesitated, then added, "I know I have said this before, but I am really glad you ended up here, Lucy. This place feels different with you in it." "Better." Lucy's breath caught. "Different how?" Miles looked at her for a long moment, and Lucy thought she saw something vulnerable and hopeful in his eyes. "Like it is actually a home instead of just a place where I work." Before Lucy could figure out how to respond to that, one of the temporary hands called for Miles's attention on a matter involving the cattle pens. Miles went to deal with it, and the moment passed. But his words echoed in Lucy's mind for days afterward. A home. He had called it a home with her there. The temporary hands left after the roundup, and Lucy and Miles returned to working the ranch alone. Summer brought long days and the birth of 2 healthy foals. Lucy was in her element, spending hours with the young horses, handling them gently and teaching them to trust human touch. Miles often watched her work, and Lucy began to notice things. The way his gaze lingered on her, the small smiles that crossed his face when she was not looking, the careful way he found excuses to stand near her. Could he possibly feel the same way she did? Lucy was afraid to hope, afraid to assume, afraid to risk what they had by reaching for more. So she continued as she had been, working hard and keeping her feelings hidden. But the tension between them grew, a crackling awareness that made the air feel electric whenever they were alone together. It finally came to a head one evening in late July. They had spent the day moving cattle to a new pasture, and both of them were tired and dusty. As the sun set, they ended up at the corral, watching the foals play in the last light of day. One of them, a spirited little filly, was attempting to rear and run like the adult horses, stumbling over her own legs in her enthusiasm. Lucy laughed at the sight, and Miles laughed with her. When she glanced at him, she found him looking at her instead of the horses, his expression open and tender in a way she had never seen before. "What?" she asked, suddenly breathless. "You are beautiful when you laugh," Miles said quietly. "You are beautiful all the time, actually." "I have been wanting to tell you that for months now." Lucy's heart felt like it might burst from her chest. "Miles, I know I am your employer and I know that complicates things," Miles continued, the words spilling out as if he had been holding them back for too long. "But I cannot keep pretending that I do not feel what I feel. You are the first thing I think about in the morning and the last thing I think about at night. I love working beside you. I love talking to you. I love the way you are with the horses and the way you never give up on anything, no matter how hard it gets. I love you, Lucy. I think I have loved you since the day you helped me save that mare and looked at me like you were ready to fight anyone who tried to stop you from doing good work." Lucy felt tears prickling at her eyes, joy flooding through her in a warm wave. "I love you too," she said, her voice shaking. "I have loved you for months. I did not think you felt the same way." "How could I not?" Miles asked, reaching out to cup her face with his calloused hands. "You are everything I did not know I was looking for." He kissed her then, soft and careful and full of restrained longing. Lucy kissed him back, her hands gripping his shirt, all the feelings she had been holding back pouring into that one perfect moment. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I did not want to make things difficult," Lucy said. "You gave me this job when no one else would. I did not want to risk that." "You would never lose your place here," Miles said fiercely. "Even if you did not love me back, you would always have a home at this ranch, but knowing that you do love me." He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Lucy felt like she was flying. "Marry me," Miles said against her lips. "I know it is fast and I know we should probably wait, but I do not want to. Marry me, Lucy. Be my partner in everything, not just the work." "Yes," Lucy said immediately. "Yes, I will marry you." They held each other as the stars came out, making plans and sharing dreams. Miles wanted to expand the ranch, to build something lasting that they could pass on to future children. Lucy wanted to develop their horse breeding program and maybe one day teach others her training methods. Together, they could build a life that was richer than anything either of them could have created alone. They married 3 weeks later in a simple ceremony in Prescott, with Martha Green as their witness. Martha had brought her ranch foreman along for support, and both of them looked delighted by the union. After the ceremony, Martha hugged Lucy tightly. "You two are good for each other," she said. "I could see it coming months ago. Be happy, child. You have earned it." Miles and Lucy returned to the ranch as husband and wife, and everything felt different and exactly the same all at once. They still worked together every day, but now they shared a bed in the ranch house and built their life together with intention and love. Miles was an attentive and passionate husband, and Lucy discovered a happiness she had not known was possible. The ranch continued to prosper under their joint management. They expanded the cattle herd gradually, invested in better breeding stock, and developed a reputation for quality horses. Lucy's training skills became well known in the region, and people began bringing their horses to the Keller Ranch for training. Miles handled the business side of things while Lucy managed the horse program, and together, they made all major decisions about the ranch's future. 2 years after their marriage, Lucy gave birth to a healthy baby boy they named Thomas after Miles's uncle. Motherhood was an adjustment, but Lucy found she could balance caring for Thomas with her ranch work, especially with Miles's full support. He was a devoted father, often strapping Thomas to his chest in a sling while he worked, so Lucy could focus on training sessions that required both hands. "We are quite a sight," Miles said one day, watching Lucy work with a young horse while he stood nearby with Thomas sleeping against his chest. "But I would not change a thing." "Neither would I," Lucy said, her heart full. When Thomas was 2, Lucy became pregnant again. This time she gave birth to a daughter they named Rose. The little girl had Lucy's dark hair and Miles's amber eyes, and she proved to be as spirited as her mother. Thomas took his role as big brother seriously, always watching over his little sister with careful attention. The children grew up surrounded by horses and cattle, learning ranch work as naturally as they learned to walk. Lucy taught them to respect the animals and the land, while Miles taught them responsibility and hard work. Together, they created a family built on love, mutual respect, and shared purpose. More years passed, marked by the rhythms of ranch life: spring roundups, summer training sessions, fall cattle drives, and winter preparations. The Keller Ranch became one of the most respected operations in the region, known for quality livestock and fair dealings. Lucy and Miles faced challenges together, from harsh winters to difficult financial years, but their partnership and love carried them through everything. When Lucy was 32, Martha Green passed away peacefully in her sleep. She left her ranch to her nephew, but she also left a letter for Lucy that brought tears to her eyes. In it, Martha wrote about how proud she was of Lucy for persevering when the world tried to tell her she could not do what she loved. She praised the life Lucy had built and the example she set for other women who dreamed of breaking free from traditional constraints. "She believed in you from the start," Miles said, reading the letter over Lucy's shoulder. "Just like I did." "I would not be here without either of you," Lucy said. "I owe both of you so much." "You owe us nothing," Miles said, wrapping his arms around her. "You earned everything you have through your own hard work and determination. Martha and I just had the good sense not to stand in your way." That summer, Thomas turned 10 and began taking on more serious responsibilities around the ranch. He had inherited his parents' work ethic and showed a particular aptitude for understanding cattle. Rose, at 8, was already an accomplished rider and shared her mother's intuitive way with horses. Watching their children grow and thrive, Lucy felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with love. "You ever think about those 2 weeks when you were going from ranch to ranch looking for work?" Miles asked one evening as they sat on their porch, watching the sunset paint the Arizona hills in shades of gold and crimson. "Sometimes," Lucy said. "It feels like a lifetime ago. What do you think would have happened if I had not hired you?" Lucy considered the question. "I suppose I would have kept trying until I found someone who would give me a chance, or until I ran out of options and had to do something else." "I am glad it was me," Miles said, taking her hand. "I am glad you walked up that drive 14 years ago and asked for work. Best thing that ever happened to this ranch. Best thing that ever happened to me." "I was so nervous," Lucy admitted. "You were my 8th try, and I was starting to think I would never find anyone willing to look past my gender and see what I could actually do. Their loss was my gain." Miles raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I love you, Lucy Keller. I loved you when you were Lucy Patterson, standing in my barn helping save a sick horse. I loved you when you were mending fences and training Red. I loved you when you said yes to marrying me. And I love you now, watching our children grow up on the land we have built together. I love you too, Lucy said, leaning into his embrace. You gave me everything, Miles. A home, a purpose, a family. You saw me when no one else would. You were always worth seeing, Miles said. I just had the good fortune to be looking at the right moment. They sat together as night fell, comfortable in the silence that came from years of partnership and love. Inside the house, they could hear Thomas and Rose arguing cheerfully over something trivial, their voices full of the security that came from being loved and valued. The ranch spread around them, prosperous and well-maintained, a testament to everything they had built together. Lucy thought back to that dusty day in August 1882, when she had walked up to the Keller ranch with nothing but 63 cents, a satchel of belongings and desperate hope. She had been rejected at every ranch, told repeatedly that she was not suited for the work she knew she could do. But Miles had seen past the conventions and limitations that others placed on her. He had given her a chance, and that chance had blossomed into a partnership that encompassed work, love, and family. The next few years brought continued growth and prosperity. Thomas developed into a capable young rancher, eventually taking on the responsibility of managing the cattle operation under his father's guidance. Rose became an exceptional horse trainer, her skills surpassing even Lucy's natural talent. People came from across the territory to have Rose Keller train their horses, and mother and daughter worked side by side, their bond strengthened by shared purpose. When Lucy turned 40, Miles surprised her with a gift that brought tears to her eyes. He had commissioned a local craftsman to create a sign for the ranch entrance, hand-carved and painted with careful detail. It read, Keller Ranch, founded by Miles Keller, 1881, built by Miles and Lucy Keller together. You built this place as much as I did, Miles said when Lucy protested that her name did not need to be on the sign. Maybe more. You turned it from a struggling operation into what it is today. Everyone should know that. The sign went up at the entrance to the ranch, and Lucy felt a swell of pride every time she saw it. Her name, there for everyone to see, acknowledging her work and her contribution. It was a far cry from those early days when ranchers had looked at her and seen only her gender, unable to imagine that she might be capable of the work she now did so well. As Thomas and Rose grew into young adults, Lucy and Miles began discussing the ranch's future. They wanted their children to inherit the operation, but only if that was what Thomas and Rose truly wanted. To their relief and joy, both children expressed strong interest in continuing the family business. This ranch is as much a part of me as my own heartbeat, Thomas said when Miles asked him directly. I cannot imagine doing anything else. Rose agreed. Everything I love is here. The horses, the land, our family. Why would I want to leave? So plans were made for the eventual transition. Thomas would focus on expanding the cattle operation, while Rose would continue building the horse training program. Miles and Lucy would gradually step back from the day-to-day management, while remaining involved in major decisions and enjoying their grandchildren when they eventually came. Lucy was 45 when Thomas married a young woman named Clara from Prescott. She was intelligent and kind, with a practical nature that suited ranch life perfectly. The wedding was a large affair, with neighbors and friends gathering from across the territory to celebrate. Lucy watched her son marry the woman he loved and felt the deep satisfaction of seeing the next generation begin their own journey. Rose married 2 years later to a ranch hand named David, who had been working seasonally at the Keller Ranch for 3 years. He was hardworking and patient, with a genuine love for horses that matched Rose's own. Miles approved of the match, and Lucy saw in David the same qualities she had fallen in love with in Miles: integrity, kindness, and a willingness to see Rose as an equal partner rather than just a wife. The grandchildren began arriving in due course. Thomas and Clara had 3 children in quick succession, 2 girls and a boy. Rose and David had twin boys followed by a daughter. The ranch house rang with the laughter of grandchildren, and Lucy discovered that being a grandmother brought its own unique joy. She taught the children to ride as soon as they were big enough to sit a horse, passing on the skills her father had taught her so many years ago. Miles eased into semi-retirement with grace, content to let Thomas handle the cattle business while he focused on the aspects of ranch work he enjoyed most. He spent his mornings checking fence lines and his afternoons playing with grandchildren, his face always creasing into a smile when one of them ran to greet him. "We did well," he said to Lucy one evening as they watched their grandchildren play in the yard while Thomas and Rose worked with the horses in the corral. "Look at all of this. A thriving ranch, healthy children and grandchildren, respect in the community. We built something lasting." "We did," Lucy agreed, taking his hand. "We really did." She thought about the young woman she had been at 22, desperate for work and convinced she would never find anyone willing to give her a chance. That woman had been strong and capable, but she had also been uncertain and alone. Now at 53, Lucy was none of those things. She was part of a family, a community, a legacy. She was respected for her skills and loved for herself. "You ever regret it?" Miles asked. "Working so hard all those years, you could have found a different path, something easier." "Never," Lucy said firmly. "This was always what I wanted to do. I just needed someone to let me do it. You gave me that chance, Miles. You gave me everything." "You earned everything," Miles corrected gently. "I just opened the door. You walked through it and built a life through your own hard work and talent." They sat together in the fading light, 2 people who had found each other at exactly the right moment and had chosen to build a life together based on mutual respect, love, and shared dreams. The ranch stretched around them, prosperous and peaceful, home to 3 generations of family who worked the land with pride and purpose. Years continued to pass, measured in seasons and grandchildren's birthdays, in cattle drives and horse training sessions, in quiet evenings on the porch and busy mornings in the barn. Lucy and Miles grew older together, their hair turning silver, their movements slowing, but their love remaining as strong as the day Miles had first told her she was beautiful when she laughed. On their 30th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren organized a celebration that brought together neighbors and friends from across the territory. People shared stories about the Keller Ranch and the couple who had built it, about Lucy's legendary horse training skills and Miles's fair business dealings. Martha Green's nephew, now running his aunt's former ranch, spoke about how Miles and Lucy had been an inspiration to the entire ranching community. "They proved that partnership and mutual respect could build something stronger than any operation run by one person alone," he said, raising his glass. "Here is to Miles and Lucy Keller, and to 30 years of showing the rest of us how it is done." Lucy felt tears prick her eyes as she looked around at the gathered crowd. These were people who knew her story, who knew she had been rejected at every other ranch before Miles gave her a chance. They knew the obstacles she had overcome and the life she had built. And they were celebrating not just the anniversary of a marriage, but the success of a partnership that had defied convention and created something beautiful. That night, alone in their bedroom, Miles pulled Lucy into his arms. 30 years, he said wonderingly. Seems like yesterday you walked up my drive looking for work." 30 years, Lucy echoed. "Best years of my life, mine too." Miles kissed her forehead. "I love you, Lucy Keller. Thank you for saying yes all those years ago. Thank you for asking. Thank you for seeing me when no one else would." They held each other in the darkness, two people who had found love in the Arizona Territory wilderness and had nurtured it into something that would outlast them both. Outside, the ranch slept peacefully under a blanket of stars, home to a family built on love, respect, and the simple belief that everyone deserves a chance to prove what they can do. As Lucy drifted toward sleep, warm and safe in her husband's arms, she thought about the scared young woman she had been and the strong, confident woman she had become. That transformation had not happened overnight. It had taken years of hard work, countless early mornings and exhausted evenings, moments of doubt and triumph. But through it all, Miles had been beside her, believing in her capabilities and loving her for exactly who she was. She had been rejected at every ranch, told over and over that she was not suitable for the work she knew she could do. But one cowboy had seen her trying and had offered her everything: a job, respect, partnership, love, and a future beyond anything she had dared to imagine. Miles had not just given her a chance. He had given her a life, and together they had built something that would endure for generations. Lucy fell asleep with a smile on her face, her hand clasped in Miles's, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived and a love that had transformed everything. The final years of Lucy and Miles's life together were peaceful and full of joy. They spent their days working on the ranch at a pace that suited their aging bodies, surrounded by family and the land they loved. Thomas and Rose managed the ranch operations with skill and care, having learned from the best teachers they could have asked for. When Miles passed away at 78, surrounded by his wife, children, and grandchildren, he went peacefully. His last words to Lucy a simple, "I love you." Lucy grieved deeply, but found comfort in their children and grandchildren, in the ranch they had built together, and in the memories of a love that had sustained her for more than 3 decades. She lived another 6 years, remaining active on the ranch until the very end. She spent her final years teaching her grandchildren and great-grandchildren everything she knew about horses, ensuring that her knowledge would be passed down through the generations. She told them stories about their grandfather, about the day she walked up the drive looking for work, and about the life they had built together. When Lucy passed away at 81, the entire ranching community mourned. The Keller Ranch had become a landmark in the territory, known throughout Arizona and beyond. At her funeral, Rose spoke about her mother's legacy. "My mother taught us that determination and skill matter more than what other people think you should be able to do," Rose said, her voice strong despite her tears. "She taught us to work hard, to treat people and animals with respect, and to never give up on our dreams. But most of all, she taught us about love. The love between her and our father built this ranch and this family. That love is her greatest legacy, and it will live on in all of us." Lucy was buried next to Miles on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a simple headstone that read, "Lucy Patterson Keller, 1860–1941. Beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. She was a talented horsewoman, a dedicated rancher, and proof that courage and capability know no gender." The Keller Ranch continued to prosper under the management of Thomas and Rose's children, and eventually their grandchildren. The horse training program that Lucy had developed became renowned throughout the Southwest, and the Keller name became synonymous with quality and integrity. Every generation learned the story of how their great-great-grandmother had been rejected at every ranch until Miles Keller gave her a chance, and how together They had built something that would last. The ranch still stands today, bearing the sign that Miles had commissioned all those years ago, a testament to a partnership born from courage, nurtured by love, and sustained by mutual respect. It serves as a reminder that sometimes all someone needs is one person willing to see past convention and offer everything to someone who is trying their best. Lucy and Miles's love story became legend in Arizona territory, a tale passed down through generations of ranchers and cowboys. It was the story of a woman who refused to give up despite constant rejection, and of a man who had the wisdom to recognize talent and the courage to give someone a chance when society said he should not. But more than that, it was a story about love, partnership, and the beautiful life that can be built when two people choose to face the world together. Their legacy lived on not just in the thriving ranch and the family who continued to work it, but in the countless women who heard Lucy's story and found the courage to pursue their own dreams despite obstacles. Lucy had proven that determination, skill, and hard work could overcome prejudice and create opportunities where none had existed before. She had lived a life of purpose, love, and fulfillment, and she had done it by staying true to herself and never giving up. In the end, Lucy Patterson had been rejected at every ranch until Miles Keller saw her trying and offered her everything. And everything was exactly what they had built together: a home, a family, a legacy, and a love that transcended time and touched generations. It was a story with a happy ending, one that reminded everyone who heard it that sometimes the greatest things in life come from taking a chance on someone who is willing to work for what they want. The sunset painted the Arizona hills in shades of gold and crimson, just as it had on that evening when Miles first told Lucy he loved her. The ranch was quiet, the work done for the day, and somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnied peacefully. Life continued on the Keller Ranch as it had for decades, built on a foundation of love, respect, and the simple truth that everyone deserves a chance to prove what they can do when someone believes in them enough to offer everything.